Well, good evening. Welcome to the Department of Chemical Engineering and Materials Science Centennial and Jubilee Celebration Dinner. Thank you so much for joining us for a once-in-a-lifetime celebration of the department. I'm going to make a few remarks, and while I do so, I invite you to go ahead and begin your salads. So please, go ahead. Enjoy. It is thrilling to see so many familiar faces in the audience. For those of you whom I haven't met, I've met most of you by now. My name is Dan Frisbee, and I'm proud to serve as the 8th Department Head of Chemical Engineering and Materials Science. I've had the pleasure of working alongside the finest faculty colleagues, students, and staff, the people of CEMS, since I joined the faculty in 1994. Similarly, it has been one of my great pleasures as Department Head over the last 5 years to engage with you, our alumni, friends, and industrial partners who support the department in so many ways. Tonight, as we celebrate 100 years of excellence in chemical engineering and 50 years of excellence in material science, it has never been more evident that the true legacy of this department is that of its people. Those who trained here, those who have worked here, those who have given generously to ensure that we remain strong so that the future generations will continue to benefit from this unique and world-renowned enterprise we call CEMS. The past 2 days have been an extraordinary opportunity for all of us, faculty, alumni, students, friends, to witness the distinguished legacy of this department firsthand. We've reconnected with friends and forged new relationships. We've learned in our symposium yesterday about the many ways in which this department has launched the lives and careers of truly remarkable individuals who work in a broad spectrum of areas. Whether your journey here brought you up the river from St. Paul or from across the country or overseas, thank you for making this evening a priority. It is deeply moving and frankly humbling to look out at the 450 people gathered here in celebration of the department. A centennial celebration is a monumental undertaking, and there are countless people to thank for making this a reality. I especially would like to acknowledge the members of our department's External Advisory Board. Would each of you on the EAB please stand up just for a moment? Stand up. I have just a few things to say. Since its inception 3 years ago in 2016, this dedicated group of accomplished alumni and industrial friends, led by Board Chair Dr. Nav Singh, has pushed us to think broadly and holistically about the impact that CEMS makes on a global scale. For the past 18 months, each of these board members has played a pivotal role in making this weekend's festivities a success, and their volunteer leadership is unparalleled. Thank you again to all these individuals. Our board, along with many faculty and alumni, were instrumental in helping to secure the support of our centennial partners. Gifts from these generous corporations and individuals enabled us to launch, beginning this weekend, an entire year of celebratory and intellectually engaging programming. A heartfelt thanks to each of our centennial partners for your leadership in giving to the Centennial and Jubilee efforts and for making tonight and the coming year one for the history books. I'd especially like to thank our title partners, 3M and Dow, for their generosity and ongoing investment in our students and faculty. Industrial interaction is vital to our success as a top engineering program, not only because it ensures outstanding career opportunities for our graduates, but also critically because it provides an ample supply of real-world engineering problems that sharpen our research programs and provide inspiration for our students and faculty. In both respects, the support of Dow and 3M is simply exemplary. Please join me again in a round of applause for all companies and individuals who joined us as Centennial partners. Every year, CEMS owes a great deal to our remarkable community of benefactors. We witness the impact of their generosity each day. People like class of 1990 grad Dr. Raj Melkote, whose scholarship support makes it possible for underrepresented students to receive a scientific education of the highest quality. Micah Howard and Ishita Kamboj, who along with more than 50% of their fellow class of 2019 graduates, these are the folks that graduated a month ago, are helping to build a culture of philanthropy among CMS students and to pay it forward by supporting a class of 2019 undergraduate scholarship. Kathy Davis, who plans to establish an endowed faculty chair in honor of the late H. Ted Davis, her husband, our former dean and department head, securing the lasting legacy of one of our greatest leaders. Zolt and Mary Rumi, we are so grateful that you are here with us tonight. Your comprehensive investment in the entirety of this department, from undergraduate scholarships and study abroad education to graduate student fellowships and faculty research, is exemplary. Now, with the creation of a new endowed chair to support enterprising faculty and a new endowed scholarship to support undergraduates, you continue to demonstrate steadfast commitment to the chief legacy of this department, its people. Thank you so much. These are but a few examples of the profound generosity that you, our alumni and friends, make possible. Your support fosters competence, curiosity, creativity, collaboration, and commitment to excellence in a new generation of engineers who walk out the doors of Amundsen Hall and into the research labs and workplaces of tomorrow. Our students are the talent and the potential that the world needs now. And we are profoundly grateful for your help in ensuring that we can recruit, train, and empower these talented individuals now and in the future. You are all a part of this history. You help us inspire young people to study science and engineering. You create research opportunities that allow faculty to turn theory into practice. You support students with scholarships and fellowships that put a world-class chemical engineering or materials engineering education within reach. Whenever and however you have joined us on this journey, thank you. Tonight, we not only reflect upon our distinguished history, but also imagine together what might be possible for the disciplines of chemical engineering and materials science, two complementary and synergistic fields of study that have monumental impact on society and on our individual lives. But first, as students of history, we know that in order to forge the future, we must comprehend the past. And so we turn to the question, how did this great department come to be at the University of Minnesota? To help us answer that, we are deeply fortunate to count Professor and President Emeritus Ken Keller as the official CEMS historian. Yes, President Emeritus Keller is writing our department history, and I can't think of anyone better for this task. Ken Keller was hired into CEMS by none other than Neil Amundsen in 1964. While a young faculty member here, he played a key role nationally in launching the field of biomedical engineering. He served us as our fourth department head in the late 1970s, and then he held a number of upper-level administrative positions in the university, including provost and senior vice president for academic affairs, and ultimately university president from 1985 to 88. Now, you should know that Ken still has an office in Amundsen Hall, and as of next week, so will our current president, Eric Kaler, once he steps down and returns to the CMS faculty. In fact, Kaler and Keller will be Amundsen Hall neighbors. As you can see, there will be no shortage of executive advice from me, delightfully. Ken, I invite you to come on up and tell us about your latest project. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. What he didn't say is Kaler's office is bigger than mine. It really is a terrific celebration that we're having here on these 2 days. And these kinds of occasions, we ancients tend to get very sentimental. I'm trying to understand my role out here tonight, and I think I'm kind of a ghost of Christmas past with a more upbeat message. The truth is, this department has had a fantastic 100-year run. Just think of it. It's been a national leader in the major refocusing of the intellectual structure of chemical engineering in the 50s and 60s. It played a similar role as one of the first movers in bringing chemical engineering and material science together, in exploring and exploiting the synergies between those two fields. Its graduates can be found in the faculties of essentially every major university in the country. It can even boast about, well, it can admit to having intimate links to 4 university presidents, as well as untold deans and department heads. At the same time, its graduates can be found in senior positions throughout industry. Yesterday was a terrific day at the symposium where we saw the education that we provide here manifested in the careers of people who are doing interesting and creative things across a broad spectrum of possibilities. And you know, that means a lot to us. I hope you, all of you who are graduates, understand the extent to which your successes make us very proud and give us a sense of having and ourselves spent a life doing good things. So all of that is true, and it's a matter of pride. But I have to tell you something else. If you talk to Lenny Schmidt or Bob Carr or Chris McCosco or Ed Kussler, I've now named all of us who are still around, you'll find that all these facts only tell part of the story. We ancients are eager to add to the tale, to talk about a department that is a community, a family, welcoming, supportive, sharing, alive with ideas, devoted to, insistent on good teaching and mentoring, as well as outstanding research. There's a fellow named Nick Pepys, who many of us in academia know. He's a longtime faculty member at Purdue in Texas. He wrote a brief history of chemical engineering back in the 90s, in which he said that the graduate program at Minnesota in the 60s and 70s was, and now I am quoting, the best graduate program ever. Now, if my colleague Rutherford Aris were here, he would point out that most of us don't take seriously a horse race approach to judging academic programs, although we don't mind being flattered. Nick, for his flattery, is certainly a gentleman, a scholar, and a good judge of horseflesh. But his comment, however flattering, misses an important point. Academic programs generally wax and wane over time. They reach heights, they fall down for periods of time. What is more difficult and more exceptional and more telling is to maintain quality and reputation over time, in the case of this department for more than 50 years. That kind of persistence reflects a culture in which there's constant attention to thinking about the future, in welcoming and supporting new faculty, in thinking carefully about fit in hiring, in sharing and perpetuating values. The department that I see today is not the same as the one I came to some 55 years ago. It's different in size, it's different in programmatic thrusts, in research directions, in the backgrounds of many of its faculty. But happily, I do see in many ways the manifestation of the values I recognize in our department. An insistence on quality, a commitment to the enterprise, to students, to teaching, to research, and a sense of the department that, and now I repeat myself consciously, is a community, not simply a place to work. There are lots of lessons in the department's history and lots of stories to be told about people who've been a part of it. Dan described me as the departmental historian. It's a grand title, it's a little over the top, but nevertheless, I've accepted it willingly. And as I said in response to a question at yesterday's symposium, with a lot of help from staff, faculty, and alumni, and as Dan noticed, a book is in the work, a story of the department. It'll cover the facts, the year-to-year to decade events from the beginning to the present, but it's also trying to capture the tangible and intangible effects this department has had on its students, the university at large, and the profession. It's a labor of love for me, and it helps that I've been around so long, but I'm also conscious that it can go awry I'm conscious of the fact that the people who are amateur historians like me who reach an age when the quote is, "He's now reached an age where the things he remembers best never happened." So we're doing a lot of work in archives, and I'm sort of checking reality with people around. And we're inviting people to offer their own stories and their own information. And we're going through files, and many of which will find their way into the book. In fact, I'd welcome any stories or anecdotes that you'd like to share. Send them in. Not all of them will fit, but some may help us to make a point on the narrative. Right now, we hope the book will be ready to see the light of day before the end of the calendar year, a Christmas gift for everybody, including me. On the other hand, that's a long time to wait, and I want to know that we have a small treat for you right now. It's a short film that touches on many of the themes that the book will explore. I hasten to add that although I made some comments in the film, I had nothing to do with its very professional planning and execution, which, of course, as many things in these 2 days, were commissioned and supervised by Gail Gabrielski. I think you'll enjoy it. Let me tell you, from the inside as well as the outside, that is a well-deserved comment. I think you'll enjoy it, and it's going to be a good lead-in to some of your dinner conversations. By the way, the main course will follow the film. Thank you.
The history of CEMS started with the need for innovation in education. Expansion of the American economy after World War I meant industry required increasing supplies of raw materials, chemicals, and fuels. To meet this challenge and to address the growing popularity of chemistry, the discipline of chemical engineering was born in American universities. In 1919, the School of Chemistry at the University of Minnesota recruited Charles A. Mann to head up the newly created Division of Chemical Engineering. For 30 years, Professor Mann led a small group of faculty in the basement of Smith Hall with a focus on industrial chemistry. By the 1940s, the University of Minnesota had also developed a respected program in the School of Mines and Metallurgy.
The longevity of Minnesota's mining industry has a lot to do with University of Minnesota faculty, who developed the taconite process in the 1940s. The School of Mines and Metallurgy educated generations of engineers. One of our most important graduates, metallurgy graduates, was Morris Fine, who was instrumental in defining a new field, material science and engineering, which includes not only metals, but also ceramics and polymers.
In the second half of the 20th century, the University of Minnesota's chemical engineering program also saw a transformation.
It was 1950 when we moved from the basement of Smith Hall into the sunlight, and everybody loved the idea that we had windows to see through. Neil, of course, was heading the department at that time, and it was just getting started, so he was busy thinking about what he was going to do when he got the new space.
Neil obviously was the head of the department when we came out here. He taught this advanced math for chemical engineers. It was at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, okay? And he was there, so you knew to be there at 8 a.m., especially on a Saturday. And at the end, he'd have like 4 boards filled with writing and everything like that. It was all right out of his head, without notes and everything else.
Starting in the 50s, the chemical engineering department at Minnesota actually led a revolution in the entire field, restructuring it with a vision that Neil Emerson had, that it should be based in science, that it should use mathematics as a tool, and it should address a broad range of problems, not simply those in the chemical industry.
It was a way of learning, of teaching and learning, that it was to try to truly understand the principles and continue growing and learning new things, applying the old ones to move forward.
Over the years, Amundsen recruited some of the brightest minds from around the world, including Rutherford Harris, Bob Carr, John Dollar, Arnie Fredrickson, Ken Keller, Skip Scriven, Ted Davis, Lanny Schmidt, and many others.
Rutherford Harris was a polymath. He could speak about anything. He talked about column chromatography and Latin paleography.
I think anybody who worked for Skip and Ted will remember the experiences of writing a manuscript. Ted, in particular, liked ideas and laying out things in a clear way, and Skip was absolutely driven to express things as clearly and as succinctly as you could.
Ken Keller had a big influence on my career, and he taught biomedical engineering, which was a new concept to me, if not a new concept to the university at the time. So that idea about being able to design products to help people really captured my imagination.
As Amundsen and his early hires were shaping the chemical engineering program in the 1950s and 60s, Dick Swalene, Maury Nicholson, and their colleagues in metallurgy were shaping the future of materials science.
Over time, the fields of material science and chemical engineering began to cross over in several ways. In 1970, chemical engineering merged with material science at the University of Minnesota to create the incredibly broad, multidisciplinary program we have today.
Even as the program continued to evolve and grow its reputation, CEMS always maintained a strong sense of community and collaboration.
We had a small group then. We kind of bonded pretty well. It was really a great sense of camaraderie. We worked hard together, we kind of supported each other, and we partied together too, which is, part of the experience.
When I arrived here in 1990, I remember it being a very energetic atmosphere. I was surrounded by people who loved what they did, research, teaching. In fact, I had the pleasure of launching my research career here and interacting with a number of faculty, including Skip Scriven, who taught me a lot about how to think deeply about research.
Along with a history of pioneering research in the department, CEMS alumni are also pioneers, from Bob Gore, inventor of Gore-Tex, to Art Fry, inventor of the Post-it note, among many other success stories.
So back in 1981-82, that time PC started, what they need is a low-cost bus storage. So they approached me and said, hey, Tu Chen, why don't you start a company? I said, well, I don't want to do it. We have to raise money. It's too headache. But the guy said, don't worry about it. I help you raise the money. You just tell me you want to do it. I help you raise the money. That's how I started.
We did not discover carbon fibers, but we did figure out how to make it at a low enough cost. The biggest application we have is the wind turbine blades, reinforcement for anything over 50-meter long blades. They're all carbon fibers now, and that was because of what we did.
I think if you ask people at General Mills what they remember me for, and there are probably three things. One is that continuous serial system. The other thing, Honey Nut Cheerios, people will say, hey, Phil was on that, fault with that whole thing, making that work. And the last thing was gluten-free Cheerios.
I've done everything in my career since I graduated, starting out being an engineer, then working my way up. I've run sales programs, I've run marketing programs, and I've run 2 companies that I've sold. So I think it's been an interesting career, and I'm still having fun.
The success of our alumni colleagues has really been remarkable, from leading Fortune 500 companies to enormous scientific and technical breakthroughs. So the quality and quantity of a Minnesota program, I think, is very special and differentiates us from almost everybody else.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and dinner service will begin now, so please enjoy dinner, and we'll be back up when dinner ends. Thank you. Well, it's time to get started again, folks. I hope you all enjoyed your dinner and the conversation. It's now my honor to introduce University of Minnesota President Eric Kaler. A graduate of our great department, he earned his PhD from CMS in 1982, working with the legendary Skip Scriven and Ted Davis. He's a perfect example of alumni achievement. Eric assumed the presidency here in 2011, and will be stepping down in just 8 days. As I already explained, we are fortunate that he has agreed to return to a faculty position in CMS. We are also grateful for his leadership and tremendous dedication to our great university. Please help me welcome President Eric Kaler.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening, everyone, and it's great to be with you here this evening as we celebrate 100 years of chemical engineering, that's the centennial, and 50 years of material sciences, that is the Jubilee. And it's nice to see Regent Hsu, President Emeritus Ken Keller, Provost Karen Hansen, and Vice President for Research Chris Kramer all here tonight. Welcome. The Department of Chemical Engineering and Material Science, of course, has always been one of my favorite departments, and it's gotten even more popular for me over the past few months as I've begun to plan my move back to the department. Dan's going to be my new boss, and we're going to work that out well. And I'm so pleased that he appreciates the value that not one but two President Emeriti can bring to his daily leadership of the department. Stay tuned. So in these past few months, I've often been asked to reflect on my 8 years as president of the University of Minnesota, and I'm not going to do that in detail with you tonight at all. But the areas that we've been able to move the needle on are many. I'm very proud of the accomplishments of my leadership team over this period of time. We've advanced in innovation, we've advanced in healthcare, we've moved towards sustainability and protection of our food and water supplies. We've focused on opportunity for all, and last but never least, we've focused on a great student experience for students at the University of Minnesota. And it's getting to know those students and watching them accomplish their goals that has been the most rewarding thing to me during my time as president. And along those lines, I want to say thank you to all of you, colleagues and friends, for all that you do to make the University of Minnesota great. Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be able to traverse this journey with a great partner. My wife, Karen Kaler, who many of you know, has been an absolutely superb First Lady. She hates that term. First Lady of the University of Minnesota. So, Karen, thank you. Another really rewarding aspect of the presidency is honoring and recognizing our remarkable alumni, and we have a great one tonight. The Outstanding Achievement Award is the highest honor the University of Minnesota bestows upon a graduate. This award, by rule, can only be conferred on those graduates who have attained unusual distinction in their chosen fields or professions or in public service, and who have demonstrated outstanding achievement and leadership on a community, state, national, or international level. Zolt Romy has done it all. I was especially struck by the wonderful praise in the letters of nomination for Zolt. George Hausman, who worked for Zolt as the Chief Technology Officer of Zoltech Companies, wrote, quote, "I can personally attest that Zolt Romy has been the most innovative and disruptive force to the carbon fiber industry." And if you live in the industrial world, innovative and disruptive is really, really good. So congratulations. Georgia Institute of Technology professor Satish Kumar wrote that, who is one of the world's most foremost experts on fibers and carbon fibers, wrote in his letter that Zolt founded Zoltech when carbon fiber industry was not profitable. That is quite a courageous move, that's true, and also speaks volumes about his intellect and insights. Zoltech went on to be the world leader in the development of low-cost carbon fibers and polyacrylonitrile fiber. Yasusuga, Senior Vice President at Toray Industries, the company that purchased Zoltech for over $500 million in 2014, wrote that Zolt's combined accomplishments as a business leader and technology innovator are simply exceptional. And there is no question that Zolt and his former company have significantly impacted the carbon fiber industry globally. Zolt Romy is outstanding in every way for what he's accomplished, his scientific vision, and his entrepreneurship. and for all he has done to honor the University of Minnesota, we now honor our alumnus with this award. Zolt, thank you and congratulations. Please join me at the podium. I'm honored to award the Outstanding Achievement Award to Zolt Rumi. The citation reads, Distinguished Graduate of the University of Minnesota, founder of Zoltech Corporation, visionary business leader whose innovations revolutionized the carbon fiber composite industry, relentless innovator and strategist whose belief in the radical concept of a low-cost, high-performing carbon fiber transformed the energy and aviation industries. Courageous and insightful entrepreneur whose bold spirit allowed his company to flourish in previously unavailable applications and markets. The Regents of the University of Minnesota, as an expression of high esteem and in recognition of noted professional attainment, confer upon Zolt Rumi this Outstanding Achievement Award on June 22nd, 2019. Zolt, congratulations.
Well, I prepared a half-hour speech, but I was begged not to give it. So all I want to say is I started my U.S. life here, pretty much here at the university. Became a citizen after my freshman year. And at that time, I would never dreamt that I would be standing here receiving this wonderful award. Thank you very much.
When I think of the history of the department, I'm struck by the fact that not only has it risen to a very high level of quality, but it stayed at a high level of quality through many generations. And I think that has been because it's always worried about the future. It's always been careful to plan for the future, and that makes me very hopeful that the next 100 years are going to see a continuation of what has been a great record.
CEMS has a long legacy of leading the fields of chemical engineering and materials science, and it does this by continuing to reinvent itself. The current cadre of faculty and students really represents the next generation.
It's just a really vibrant intellectual community, a place to come to work every day with colleagues and students that are really engaged in cutting-edge research of their own, but also really committed to crossing boundaries of disciplines and working together.
We have world-class scientists and experts in their respective fields, but they also go out of their way to collaborate with other departments, both inside the University of Minnesota and outside, to come up with something greater than what they could do by themselves.
I think one of the biggest things is we have an incredible reputation, and so what that means when we go to conferences, when I'm meeting other faculty from other institutions, people know us, people are aware of our work, people get excited of our work.
I see the department engaging in today's most pressing problems on a larger scale than they have ever been before. They'll be involved with outreach, they'll be opening their doors to including wider populations and getting people's heads together to really figure out the root cause of some of the issues we face today.
Well, I believe there's just so much to do in the world. I look at climate change, I look at the number of people that are being born and all the challenges that are coming in the future to feed them and do all the other things we need to do. So I believe that this group can really add value in the future.
I think CEMS is going to be the breeding ground of new technologies for solving the problems of climate change, separation and purification technologies for cleaner air and water, and solving the problem of ocean plastic.
I see it changing by accepting more women or making just more open to a variety of backgrounds being able to help somebody else like they helped me is the least I can do to help the department and to help the profession.
An important thing that the department has always stood for is excellence, but it combines that with accessibility. We're a large department. We educate hundreds of engineers, material scientists every year, and that breadth and accessibility to qualified students is a singularly important feature of the department and has to be maintained.
We should be investing in this education, and especially the technical education, because that essentially is where a successful career is built, and that's where a successful life is built.
We're trying to teach students not only some facts about chemistry and engineering, how to put things together and solve problems, but how to be innovative, how to work in teams, and how to be a leader. And if our department keeps going in that future of creating the whole student, we're going to be outstanding for the next 100 years, and I want to be a part of that.
I hope you enjoyed that. In introducing our next speakers, I will observe that, as you just heard in the video, the problems facing our world are pressing and the consequences high. Today's challenges demand creative, informed minds, innovators who will ask the critical questions and work to uncover the answers. CEMS students, faculty, and alumni have the talent and the ambition to find creative solutions to serious challenges. This isn't department head hyperbole. The data exists to support these proud claims. You just heard, for example, about Zolt Rumi's tremendous accomplishments. Alumna Janelle Callis, who is with us here tonight, has undertaken a huge effort to catalog the patents generated by our alumni throughout the past 100 years. She has found that 35% of all CMS alumni were named inventors on one or more patents in virtually every broad category of technology. Think about that for a moment. When Neil Amundsen led the merging of chemical engineering and material science nearly 50 years ago, he set in motion an enormously successful interdisciplinary approach that was rooted in fundamentals, but always inspired by real-world complex problems. Our graduates take this philosophy seriously. I'd like to introduce you now to two of our more recent alumni who are driven to solve problems that might sound like science fiction. How about creating an environmentally sustainable, delicious, plant-based meat alternative that tastes and looks just like beef? Or why not improve spacecraft design to bring us one step closer to colonizing Mars? These engineering problems are just another Tuesday for our next two speakers. Nick Halla has built his career leading sustainable technology development and commercialization, from farming to commercial food development to renewable energy, now to Impossible Foods, which he joined as the company's first employee. Today, Nick is Impossible Foods' Senior Vice President for International Business and Retail, overseeing the company's growing presence around the world. Before joining Impossible, Nick was an expert in food commercialization at General Mills, where he developed and launched several new product lines and designed large-scale food manufacturing systems. His Minnesota ChemE degree has proven useful in a variety of sectors, demonstrated by his experience in agriculture, having grown up on a family farm, and commercializing new technologies such as solar energy storage and biofuels. After completing his undergraduate degree in ChemE here in 2005, Nick went on to receive an MBA from the Stanford Graduate School of Business and an MS in Environment and Resources from the Stanford School of Earth Sciences. Following Nick, we will hear from material science alumna Ellen Lebrecq, whose post-2016 graduation path took her from Minneapolis to Seattle, where she now serves as part of the SpaceX Starlink team. Ellen's enthusiasm for the field of material science was evident to all of us while she was a student here. She was an active member of the Material Advantage Student Group, serving as its president and inspiring countless Twin Cities elementary and high school students to engage in science and engineering. Today, Ellen brings that enthusiasm, dedication, and scientific knowledge to build complex telecommunication systems to support a future mission to Mars. Nick and Ellen, welcome back to campus. Come on up.
Adjust the mic so you speak right in. All right. Okay. All right, we good? Yep. All right. Well, I'm Nick Halla. Thank you for inviting me to speak here today. I'm truly honored to have been part of such a world-renowned program and then having the privilege here to speak. So, as I talked a little bit about, I grew up about 60 miles from here on a small family dairy farm. Then I followed my father's footsteps, who is also a proud U of M alum. I studied chemical engineering here, and I fondly remember this. I created some of my deepest lifelong friendships, many who are in the audience here tonight. And I really learned how to be me and how to approach the world. As I look at the chemical engineering program, it's not just learning the tricks and the rules and the technical skills you need to be an engineer. It's also really learning how to think, how to approach problems, how to knock down any barrier. I remember many late nights studying, trying to solve problems that to us at the time seemed completely unsolvable. And to us at the time, they probably were completely unsolvable. But you work at it. And what I think I learned out of that is to build a tenacity and always really just going for it and really trying to find a way. And so after that, I got a frontline research job at General Mills. One of my bosses at General Mills is sitting in the audience too. And I really learned how to be an engineer. And then I learned how a business runs, from being in a consumer's home to making the food at the factory floor to delivering it to the consumers. And I was really inspired by that. But I also knew I wanted to do something more, and something more globally, environmentally, sustainably impactful. And so I took that opportunity, got into Stanford, studied how to commercialize sustainable technologies, tried to start probably a half dozen businesses during graduate school, something always to do with sustainable technology or new business models. And through that process, I met a professor named Dr. Patrick Brown. And he had been a researcher in the medical school at Stanford for 25 years. The two things he's most famous for is he started PLOS, the Public Library of Science, which many of our scientists here I'm sure have published in. And then he invented the DNA microarray. But he had never done anything in food before, and he took a sabbatical in 2009, looking at how he could have the biggest impact on the world. And he realized one of the biggest challenges we have is how to feed the global population. And by far the biggest threat to the global environment is our reliance on animals for food. Animals are great at producing foods that people like, but they're very, very inefficient. So I think this crowd will probably appreciate this. A cow in the US, which is the most efficient beef production system, is a 3% efficient technology of taking plant-based nutrients and converting them into the meat that we eat today. What technologies at the scale of meat exist at a 3% efficiency? Now, if you go directly back to the plants, we can be an order of magnitude or more efficient, vastly sparing resources that we need for other things, and just really stopping the deforestation and the land degradation that we're causing. And so you look at it, this isn't something that is nice to have, this is something that we have to have. Today, about 45% of the world's arable land surface is used for animal agriculture, and the United Nations projects that meat consumption will increase 70% by 2050. It just doesn't work. If we want to continue to have the meat, fish, and dairy foods we love, we have to find a better way. And that was the vision Pat had, and I joined on that idea that there's a way to solve this. There's a very diverse plant-based ecosystem. We just have to learn what meat, fish, and dairy foods are, why consumers like them. And so we spent almost 5 years really breaking down the properties of meat, fish, and dairy, and then building new tools out of the plant-based world. And our mission is to produce the most delicious meat, fish, and dairy foods the world's ever had, but all directly from plants. And by doing that, we can create a much more sustainable ecosystem. And one key point is, if it's not better in taste and performance than what we get from animals, consumers aren't going to change. So it was a very, very high bar from the start. So we built a team of over 100 scientists and engineers really working on this problem. We launched our first product with the meat chefs of America, David Chang, Michael Simon, Tracy Desjardins, Chris Cosentino. These are the most discerning chefs that are not going to serve anything that they don't think their meat-loving consumers want, and we built our credibility behind that. And now we're up to about almost 10,000 restaurants. And so the platform's really developed to do anything an animal does for food. And coming back to our sustainability mission, we use 96% less land, 89% less greenhouse gas emissions, and 87% less water than meat from a cow, and we're only just getting started. And now I take back to what I'm doing. So right now I'm running our international retail business. Over time, I've probably done anything within impossible at some point. And my training here at the chemical engineering department really is what got me here. I learned how to attack problems. I learned how to solve things with teams. I would have never got through the education here without working with teams. I learned how to do that effectively. And I think I look back at the big global problems. We want to put the smartest, most driven people on the hardest problems in the world, the ones that we have to change. And this program in the chemical engineering department is in the prime place to do that. So this is a place where we have to train our future leaders, because they're the ones who are really going to help us drive to a more sustainable world. And I'm just vastly proud of being part of such a great community and honored to be here tonight. So now I also get to introduce our next speaker. So if that doesn't work, we have a backup plan. So we'll watch a quick video on SpaceX where our next honored speaker works. Thank you.
Here is a look at the Dragon capsule making its way towards the International Space Station.
Station on 2, we see Dragon at 20 meters.
And capture is confirmed.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ellen, and I'm so honored to be here tonight as a proud alumna of the Material Science class of 2016. While here at the U, one of my proudest accomplishments was being an officer and president of the Material Science student group Material Advantage, which focused on delivering career and research opportunities to current students, as well as a K-12 outreach program, which helped local students explore their interests in material science. Of course, most of my time was spent in class and studying, but I really enjoyed learning the fundamentals of material science and applying them in the excellent Valspar Materials Lab. But my favorite part of this department has always been the professors. I was lucky enough to find material science through a high school program hosted here at the U, and that's where I got to meet Professor Lorraine Francis. And if anyone's heard her talk, you know that she's so passionate, so I knew I had to come to be in this department and come here for school. All the professors in this department are so passionate, and they really, really care about their students. I spent so many hours just hanging out in their office hours, getting homework help and test prep, and also just life advice. So they really made me proud to be a student here. After graduation, I started working at IBM as a printed circuit board, or PCB, reliability engineer in Rochester, Minnesota. I did not know much about printed circuit boards when I graduated from material science, but I soon learned all about the design, manufacturing, and quality requirements of PCBs. After about a year of working at IBM, I found myself drawn to Seattle, where I found out that SpaceX had opened an office there in 2015. I had seen some of their rocket launches, which, as you know, are very exciting. So when I saw they had a PCB engineering opening, I applied. In September of 2017, I started working at SpaceX as a PCB manufacturing engineer. SpaceX was started in 2002 by Elon Musk. I'm sure you've heard of him. And the mission of the entire company is to create rockets and spacecraft that will allow humans to travel to and eventually live on other planets, primarily Mars. I work in the Redmond office, which is home to the Starlink team. Starlink will be the key to financing our mission to Mars. Starlink is a telecommunication system which consists of 4,500 satellites that will orbit the Earth and provide constant, high-speed, low-latency internet all over the world. I work on the PCB design team, where I support all PCB designs for manufacturability, quality, and reliability. I work closely with our PCB vendors and often travel to support production globally. My proudest achievement has been opening a cross-section lab where I cut open printed circuit boards to check for internal circuit quality and do failure analysis, one thing I learned here. Each day at my job, I use the critical thinking and technical writing skills that I learned at CEMS to perform my job. I use my fundamental understanding of materials characterization, properties, processing, and performance. I have to be a process expert for the polymers, metals, and composites that make up these PCBs and characterize how they work together. I am in charge of designing PCB stack-ups and test hardware, and the selection of the laminate materials and the copper is critical to the functionality of these devices. So the backbones are the PCBs are the backbones of the satellites. So I am very driven, and Elon is very driven that I get them right. Material science plays a huge role in Elon's decision-making about the direction of SpaceX. It is a core value at SpaceX that our only limitations should be the laws of physics and material science. We must understand why the materials we choose for any given application can work. Not that they're perfect, because that often makes them very expensive, but that they can work for the given requirements. We love to push the limits at SpaceX. We often require directly conflicting properties for many of our programs. We need our things to be very strong, but yet light. We need our things to be very complex, but also very cheap. We find ways to make this work. When we were told by some of our material vendors that we could never get advanced alloys on our price targets in our lead time, we simply opened our own foundry and made our own. For the Starlink program, these types of material choices have allowed us to make the smallest, cheapest, yet highest performing satellites on the market. And as we progress towards our mission to Mars, we'll need these advanced material sciences to allow us to bring materials from Earth to Mars and allow us to use those materials for housing, energy production, and terraforming, where we'll actually be engineering a new home for people off Earth. As a material scientist, I see limitless possibilities for great new materials technology in space. And that excitement stems from the passion that I developed for material science right here at CEMS. I was shown by really inspiring individuals how fascinating materials can be, but also how valuable it is to share that passion and ignite it in others. I believe that the values of this department will continue to guide students to success for the next 100 years. Congratulations, CEMS. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Nick and Ellen, for those wonderful remarks. We're very proud of you. It's now my distinct pleasure to welcome to the podium, and in many respects to welcome home, our keynote and final speaker, Matt Terrell. Currently known as Dean Terrell of the Pritzker School of Molecular Engineering at the University of Chicago, Matt once worked alongside many of us here in CMS as a faculty member and department head. Matt was hired into CMS by Rutherford Harris in the 1970s and spent more than 20 years here, serving as our 6th department head from 1994 to 99. From 1999 to 2009, he served as Dean of Engineering at the University of California, Santa Barbara. After a brief appointment as Chair of Bioengineering at the University of California, Berkeley, he agreed in 2011 to become the founding director and Dean of the Pritzker School of Molecular Engineering, the first engineering program at the University of Chicago. Matt is a world-renowned polymer scientist and has supervised more than 85 PhD students, some of whom are with us here tonight. He has won numerous awards. Perhaps most notable are his election to both the National Academy of Engineering, which happened while he was here at Minnesota, and to the National Academy of Sciences. I invited Matt to speak to us tonight because of his unique perspective, both as a former colleague, having taught and researched here for over 2 decades, and as the originator and visionary leader of an entirely new and world-class engineering program at Chicago that has elements in it traceable to CMS. Matt, thank you for accepting this invitation and welcome home.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's really an honor for me to participate in this celebration of chemical engineering and material science at the University of Minnesota. This is the department where I grew up professionally. I spent 22 years here, and it profoundly shaped my entire professional life. I started here in 1977, 7 years after the beginning of the 50-year milestone of material science that we're celebrating this weekend. I was 26 years old, just weeks from defending my PhD thesis, and I had a lot to learn. I'd inquired during the interview process about whether I should do a postdoc, and the consistent advice that I received from many CEMS faculty was encapsulated by Skip Scriven, who said with characteristic certainty, "You'll learn a lot more here than on any postdoc." And he was certainly right about that. This department has a legendary ability to shape successful people at the earliest stages of their careers. The current department head, current president are 2 prime examples. The early days of material science in this department were stimulating and challenging. I'd received my undergraduate degree in chemical engineering from Northwestern and my graduate degree in material science, polymer material science to be specific, so this department held very special intellectual appeal to me. What I saw when I came was that though Minnesota chemical engineering was well established and on top of its game in 1977, 50-some years after its founding, there was still a pervasive eagerness and sense of something to prove. This has never been a complacent department. On the one hand, the faculty were eager to push the field of chemical engineering in distinctive new directions, even beyond the paradigm-setting work of Neil Amundsen, Gus Arras, and others in the mathematical foundations of chemical engineering analysis. On the other hand, the faculty was highly motivated to make something special, to build something new out of its then unique combination of chemical engineering and material science. These ambitions harmonized and became interdependent with the hiring over the decade of the 70s and 80s, embodied chronologically by Chris McCosco, Ned Thomas, me, Fennel Evans, Tim Lodge, Frank Bates. Tim's appointment in particular also cemented a very strong and durable synergy between chemical engineering and material science and chemistry. But this group of early hires that I just mentioned in colloid and polymer science became the foundation and roadmap for developing what I'd like to call the seamless department of chemical engineering and material science today. By seamless, I mean we were sort of the first group who came here kind of identifying equally with chemical engineering and material science. This group introduced a new set of tools for imaging and scattering and mechanics and material synthesis and others that had not been part of the tool set of chemical engineering in 1980. I'm not sure if there were any other departments of chemical engineering and material science in 1970. I doubt it. Today, my inexact count puts the number at a couple dozen. It's also fair to say, by the way, that this department led the way nationally in biochemical and biomedical engineering at an early stage. It gave rise to a new department of biomedical engineering led since its inception by Bob Tranquillo, and it played a role in driving many chemical engineering departments to expand their names in different ways: chemical and biological, chemical and biomolecular, and so on. What has been done here at Minnesota exerts enormous influence. Just as the mathematical and theoretical work here in the 60s and 70s changed the field decisively, the investment, a word I will return to in a minute, at the interface of chemical engineering and material science beginning in the 70s has had deep and long-lasting effects on all of engineering science in both industry and academic work. In this way, Minnesota plays a vital role in the future economic and societal health of the nation, and the special combination of disciplines that has been created here is bound to do more. We just heard two great examples from Nick and Ellen. But consider, for example, the problem of plastics in the ocean that's so severe that the United Nations Environmental Program estimates that in 30 years there'll be more, by weight, plastic in the ocean than fish. This is not a problem that's likely to be solved by recycling alone, but rather by creative chemistry, chemical engineering, material science, in the words of the mission of the Center for Sustainable Polymers here at Minnesota, to transform how plastics are made, unmade, and remade. The opportunity exists for fundamental research to provide the foundational knowledge needed to design chemical reactions, processes, and materials that enable efficient, low-temperature conversion of discarded plastics into high-value chemicals or materials. Plastics aren't the only materials that must be made more sustainable. It's important to pursue research and development on recycling and chemical recovery processes in many areas to achieve complete sustainability or inherent sustainability. For example, in the area of energy storage, key to the implementation of widespread renewable energy, lithium is already on the American Chemical Society's periodic table of endangered elements, meaning short supply is foreseeable as a problem. With batteries, as with plastics, recycling is helpful, but new designs stemming from innovative electrochemical engineering and new material science will produce the ultimate answer. Sustainability engineering is needed to address all of our natural resources: water, energy, minerals, and more. Precision synthesis of materials, processes that control the placement of every atom, every molecule, every defect, is an important goal for chemical engineers and material scientists, with numerous potential outcomes for societal benefit if we can learn, for example, how to do this. If we can make sequence-defined macromolecules synthetically, like nature makes proteins, we open up enormous vistas with applications from healthcare to information storage. In the realm of information technology, the most powerful computers of the future will probably not be based on transistors as they have been for more than 50 years. Next generation computers may be based on qubits that exhibit controllable quantum mechanical behavior in the solid state. It's been estimated that just 50 qubits, that is 50 devices such as superconducting devices like Josephson junctions, properly interacting will reach the threshold of quantum supremacy, meaning more powerful than any digital computer that could possibly be built anytime soon. Precision synthesis and exact patterning processes for superconductor and semiconductor materials are essential for quantum information technologies to develop. I'd also say that I believe that quantum information technologies will have some very important intersections with the space technologies that Ellen talked about because of the importance in satellite communications and cryptography and other kinds of technologies that use the space technology that Ellen discussed. Chemical engineers working with material scientists can make tremendous advances in healthcare technologies, for example, in cancer immunotherapies that are becoming more effective. New materials have been used to create nanoparticles that are increasingly effective against cancer by immunostimulation and synthetic vaccines. Some of us are also using nanoparticles as treatment against cardiovascular diseases, such as atherosclerosis. Engineering with chemistry and materials is central to providing many of society's needs in quality of life and economic growth. I'm perhaps uniquely positioned to see how Minnesota's precocious influence beginning in the 70s in chemical engineering and materials extends in powerful ways to modern engineering research and education in universities. In 2011, I came to the University of Chicago after intermediate stops in Santa Barbara and Berkeley, as Dan said, to become the founding director of Chicago's first engineering program. Thinking back on Minnesota, I recall that two of my senior colleagues, Ted Davis and Lanny Schmidt, were University of Chicago alums. They used to ridicule my Northwestern undergraduate education. This ribbing was actually good conditioning for my current job, where ridicule of Northwestern is commonplace. For example, you know what the N on Northwestern's football helmet stands for? Knowledge. But that isn't the kind of Minnesota-Chicago connection that I'm thinking of. I mean substantial creative influence on the field of engineering. We called our new Chicago program in 2011 the Institute for Molecular Engineering, by which we mean a couple of things long familiar to Minnesota chemical engineering and material science, specifically the following three characteristics: engineering operating very close to molecular level science in biology, chemistry, and physics; integration or convergence rather than separation of traditional disciplines; and dedication to advancing new paradigms in engineering, research, and education. In the 8 years at Chicago, we've built a faculty of 32 members focused on themes such as autonomous materials, immunoengineering, quantum engineering, and sustainability and natural resources. Suffice it to say that the intellectual environment in molecular engineering now at the University of Chicago would be very familiar to anyone from chemical engineering and material science at the University of Minnesota. This is where I want to come back to investment. Our program at the University of Chicago, a private institution with a long-standing culture of philanthropy, has benefited from considerable investments of alumni and friends. Last month, the Pritzker Family Foundation renewed its ongoing commitment to our program by providing a naming gift to establish the Pritzker School of Molecular Engineering. This development is, of course, invigorating for us and comes with a commitment from the university for the school to double in size over the next decade. Philanthropic investment is crucial to launch and sustain big enterprises and big projects. Consider how much philanthropy has made possible within chemical engineering and material science in the last 20 years. During Campaign First, alumni and friends, including myself, were motivated to give in support of this department's visionary goal to fully fund the first year of graduate studies for its students. With extraordinary capital investments from Dr. Bob and Jane Gore, Dow Chemical and Valspar, chemical engineering and material science expanded its footprint, not only in terms of space, but also magnifying the intellectual output of its faculty and students. It's not lost on me, too, that although the Pritzker School of Molecular Engineering is just beginning to contribute to society, chemical engineering and material science at Minnesota has been a massive contributor for 100 years. Each and every one of us who've participated in one way or another in the life of CEMS should make an active new commitment to help sustain it for another century. Our own philanthropy is an important statement, but so is spreading the word about what a remarkable place this is and providing employment opportunities to the human capital that Minnesota chemical engineering and material science produces, from internships to PhD researchers. This department is a powerful resource for the region, the country, and the world. My affiliation here has always been a tremendous source of pride for me. I have appreciated very much the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt, for those inspiring remarks and for your steadfast support of our department over many, many years. So while this evening is drawing to a close, I have a few final reflections and an announcement. The next century of innovation in research and excellence and teaching is just beginning for CMS. We train extraordinary people who produce pioneering ideas that transform our world. We partner with industry to bring the expertise and drive of our faculty and students to bear on practical problems, and we aren't daunted by the most pressing engineering challenges facing the world today. In fact, we are inspired by these problems. At the same time, we recognize that while there are many complexities associated with real problems, the engineering solution often relies on relatively few fundamental principles. Principles we continue to uncover and to pass on to new generations of engineering students. This is what we have done for decades, and this is what we will continue to do with your help. As a public institution in a climate of decreasing state and federal support for higher education, we cannot rest on our laurels. We are at risk of losing ground to other schools, often private, who train fewer students yet have greater resources. Now more than ever, private philanthropy will be critical to ensuring that CMS remains among the very finest engineering programs in the world. As many of you are aware, the university is in the midst of Driven, the most ambitious fundraising campaign in our institution's history. It is only fitting, given the ambitious nature of this department and its alumni, and given the historical opportunity afforded by our Centennial and Jubilee, that CMS will play a significant role in this campaign. This is why I am proud tonight to announce our goal of raising $30 million in philanthropic support by June 2021. With this critical investment, we will secure our legacy of excellence for the future by investing in our students through undergraduate scholarships and graduate fellowships. We will also invest in our faculty, enhancing our capacity for creative research on both applied and fundamental problems that impact the lives of us now and those of future generations. You will hear from me extensively about this in the coming year. Indeed. I want to express my immense gratitude to alumni and friends like you who made gifts early in this centennial campaign and who provided momentum for the incredible progress made to date. Thanks to each of you, we have raised nearly $20 million over the past 5 years and are on our way to achieving this goal. Tonight, I invite you to join us and to imagine what could be possible. What else might we achieve if we could expand our generous base of alumni and industrial supporters? How many more students could benefit from scholarships and fellowships? How many more technology breakthroughs might be discovered by our faculty, students, and postdocs? How many more future engineers might we inspire to look at the complexities of our world with confidence and creativity? We are grateful for and humbled by your belief that what happens in CMS matters to the world. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being part of our story during the past century, and for standing alongside us as we embark upon the next 100 years. The enterprising spirit of CMS, the drive for knowledge, coupled with passion for expanding what is possible, continues to propel all of us forward. Thank you for playing a vital role in our history and for demonstrating that no matter where your journey leads, this department will always be part of you. Thank you, and good night.